Welcome to Processing Purpose, a business and lifestyle podcast committed to having honest conversations about the stuff in our lives that is often suppressed, ignored, or overlooked. We are two brothers from very different backgrounds, but with one common goal. From entrepreneurship to relationships, from hobbies to house projects, nothing is off limits as we process becoming the best version of ourselves in business and life. We're back.
I like the vibrato. You hit a high note, and I appreciate that a lot.
You know, you sang it, 2, 3, 4 episodes ago? I'm just trying to keep up.
Appreciate the counterbalance.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We're here.
Had a little break.
We're doing it.
For us?
Yeah. Although we actually
week.
just talked about, a little break on recording, but we busted our butt all weekend. I woke up pretty tired. We were getting a lot of chores done, dump runs, yard work, all that stuff, getting ready for winter.
Yeah, it's the cold weather's moving in. October, leaves are changing.
Yep.
We spent actually a lot of the weekend like trimming trees and pruning and getting burn piles ready and all of that stuff. So
Wells, actually, my son, 7 years old, he's like, Dad, why are you doing all this work this weekend? I want to play, which of course is always a tear for a parent, 'cause you're like, that's way more important, but I also have these obligations. And so I actually took the time, got down on one knee and explained to him, hey, just understand mom and dad during different seasons have to prepare the home and the property for different things, right? We do go through different changes. So we live in an area that has drastic 4 seasons, really hot summers, big changes in the fall, big changes in the spring. And then of course, winter, we got to prepare for winter. It's cold. It's kind of hard to live through. So you got to prepare your home, get everything winterized and all this stuff. So I explained this stuff in detail. And I said, as opposed to an area like, Southern California, where it's the same temperature it's pretty funny. Same temperature year round, always the same. And he goes, what do you mean? Like, it's always cold there? I was like, no. It's always like 70, 80 degrees. And he looks at me and he goes, I want to live in California. Yeah, that's the problem. Everybody else does too. And that's become the issue. But nevertheless, I think it's always good to, if you can, take time and explain to your children what you're doing and why you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like, otherwise, they just think you're ignoring them sometimes.
And relate it to something that they can identify with, right?
Yeah.
How do they prep?
Right.
What areas are they prepping for? Like,
That's a great,
when you go outside and it's winter, you have to put your boots on.
Yep.
It's the same that we have to do around here. We have to make sure that our faucets are covered,
with
boots.
boots.
With boots so that they don't freeze.
Yep.
It's just part of the process of what we have to do.
Yeah. Yep. There's just a lot of have-tos in life. And, and our kids need to see us work. In fact, you sent me that video. Oh, what's his name? He's a huge speaker right now. He's married to the Spanx gal.
Oh, Jesse Itzler.
Yeah. Remember he talked about...
Jesse. It's Jesse.
Jesse Eitzer or Itzer?
Yeah.
But he talked about it. He's like, look, our kids aren't going to stop flying private. Like, that's our lifestyle now. But my kids need to see me grind. My kids need to see me just struggle, right? Whether it be climbing a mountain or anything else you're doing in your life. They need to see you grind through the have-tos. Maybe even some of those want-tos, maybe some of those climbing moments where you're like, I want to do this. I want to show my kids what it looks like to really push through pain, and doing things that you don't want to do, and just having a better attitude around it, that sort of thing. So that was really, I appreciated that a lot.
That's great. Do you have your kids helping with that stuff, or are most of your kids are still a bit younger still, or are they kind of inside while you guys are doing all that stuff?
It depends on what it is, right? But we're having to help more and more and more. But it's smaller tasks, like putting laundry away and
sure.
But Wells is wanting to help more and more, which is really endearing. It's pretty cool. So he woke up early the other morning for Nate's and your guys' birthday party and all that, and helped me smoke meat and spritzing the meat with me in the morning, and it's pretty cool. So he's wanting, yesterday for dinner, he buttered and garlic salted all the bread, and I made spaghetti last night, so he was helping with that. And so
nice. We had spaghetti last night too.
Nice.
Must have been spaghetti night.
Oh, by the way, that sausage,
it's legit, right?
Is crazy good.
So my family makes sausage every year.
I was mind blown, actually. I didn't know what to expect, but I was really impressed.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
So good.
We do our own recipe, buy the pork butt, mix it, season it, grind it, and then we do mostly bulk. Like a lot of people do link, but we like bulk sausage.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you ever do link? Have you guys ever done the casing and stuff it? And...
Yeah. We've done a lot of it, actually. I found that almost all the time I'm preferring bulk than I do over the casings and the regular sausage, because I ended up finding that I was cutting the casings off just to pull the sausage out. So it was sense. Like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
So
and sausage patties are good too.
Yeah, sausage patties. But in spaghetti,
super good.
It's makes some of the best spaghetti ever.
It's really good. So thank you for handing some of that over.
We're gonna make more here in a few weeks.
Sweet, I'll take some. And I'll pay for it too, no doubt. Man, that stuff was really good.
It's so good. Yeah. So,
are your kids helping a lot around the place?
Yeah, as much as we can find a window for them to help, yes. Again, it has to be in context to size, right? And capacity. But Van, for sure, he's 11 now. And so, I strapped the blower on his back. We have a
nice.
backpack blower. And I was like,
those are the best.
I was like, all right, you're going to blow all the leaves.
He probably loved that. He probably felt like he was Ghostbusters.
Loved, maybe in air quotes.
He's like,
He's like, okay, there's gonna be worse things.
Dude,
but yeah.
But do you ever I don't. But do you ever gamify chores? I'm thinking about I think we should. Right? He should be a Ghostbuster out there blasting ghosts. I mean, he'd love that. He'd probably eat that stuff up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Food for thought.
But yeah, anytime we have a chance, like they all, I was around trimming trees, so all of them came out and had to drag limbs over to the pile, right?
Right.
And you can get a limb that is big enough for you. Like, I don't care if it's a big one or it's a small one or you're only carrying one. And I'm like, come on, really?
Right.
As long as you're helping.
Right.
Like, this is just what we do.
Yeah. And I look back on my childhood too, and I always have this idea that I just was a really hard worker as a kid. And I don't know if that was true. If you actually, as our kids are perceiving it, they're probably like, I'm working my butt off. And you're looking back going, that's a half-ass job, or whatever else. Yeah. And here we are as kids probably feeling the same way.
Yeah. But I even told you an episode or two ago, like, I have started, when my kids ask me for stuff, I've started to say, no, I'm not your servant. Because I know they're capable of doing it. And I want the switch to, like, automatic be, I can do this. And if I can't do this, then I'm going to ask for help. But, like, how can I do this on my own? And that's a big ship to turn.
But self-efficacy is probably one of the most important parts of our development, right? As we're growing and becoming our own person and becoming independent and established in the things we do and doing it well, and so freaking important, right? So many parents just want a helicopter and do it for let's just get out of the way. Let me do it for you. Let them struggle through it. Let them figure it out, because if they're always relying on others to help them along the way.
Well, and I get it though too, right? I mean, Van helped with blowing the leaves this weekend, but it was half as good as I could have done. Right. And so I get the irritation of, like, having them help and it not being done the way you want it to be done or as well as you want it to be done. But that's going to be part of it. And the only way any of us learn anything is to do it, and probably do it wrong the first few times we do it. So you kind of have to, like, be okay with it not being done to perfection, if you will, just so that you can get them in the habit of, like, help. This is what we do.
I want to effort more toward a really kind way of correcting it, though, right? Because, like, I also am afraid my kids are going to develop an idea that half-ass efforts are good enough, and a lot of times in the world they're not. You actually lose jobs over that. Yes. So anyway, I'm trying to find that balance of, like, I appreciate you doing this, but I want to show you how I would do it, but I also don't want that to turn into a browbeating contest over, like, God, my dad never thinks anything's good enough.
It comes down to, like, effort versus performance.
Sure. If you see this, like, like, come on, dude, try a little harder, right?
Yeah. If it's like, fine, I'll do it, and they're, like, dragging the thing behind them and, like, giving half-ass energy, that's totally different than genuinely out there just trying to do it and it just not being good enough.
Right.
Like, that's two totally different things.
Right.
And so we spend a lot of time talking about effort around here.
Yeah.
And that, gosh, we had soccer games this weekend, even with Nora, with my daughter, like, it was her last soccer game of the season. And I was like, all I want to see is maximum effort.
Wait, it's over?
Yeah.
Soccer season's done?
Yeah, for Nora. Koa's still got 2 weeks left, I think.
Wow, that was
but
fast.
Nora's done. Yeah.
But
it was
good message.
It was always like, she didn't score a goal this year. enjoyed playing mostly defense. Fine. Like, that's fine. But I was like, look, all I want today, maximum effort. Like, you're not saving energy for anything else. This is the last game of the season. I want you to have to drag your fanny off that soccer field.
Yep.
And we had to have a talk about it. She's like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, what? You don't know if you can give maximum effort? Like, so we had to have a conversation about that. So, but that's the topics these days is like effort over results.
Yeah. Boy, and that actually might be a good segue into external and internal effects on our lives, or as you framed it, the macro affecting the micro around our lives. And so that's topically kind of what we were leaning toward today, was just talking about how we manage ourselves through it all. And the reason I say that's a good segue is I think effort is the only answer through all of it. You know, I think there are too many unknowns. And what I mean by external and internal, meaning what is going on in the world that is totally reshaping or changing the way you perceive it and the way you behave and the way you pursue things. And I think Luke is right. I think, talking about all of the oddities in the world, we can get into the specifics, but we don't need to. You can turn on just about any news syndication.
And I'm sure we'll touch on some of them.
Yeah. But the truth is that through all of it, whether it be uncertainty, fear, just a constant need for work, is effort. I think you just have to keep efforting toward, whether it be a goal or maybe just a simple necessity, right? That you're just moving toward it. You're taking steps toward it. You're trying to learn more. You're trying to become better. As I've said before, Robert Kiyosaki said that one of the greatest, for lack of a better term, sadnesses of the world is the fact that most people are just uneducated enough to not see the opportunities sitting right in front of them. He said it's not a big margin. It's a really small margin. And I think effort can make the difference there and close that gap for a lot of people.
Such a massive topic, and we'll try and touch on it, but I see so many people and people in our family and otherwise that get paralyzed. I think that's probably a pretty good word, actually, because of some sort of drama going on in the news or abroad or in their own house or with relationships. And it's really easy to get caught up in, what my head coach calls the red vortex.
Sure.
Of just like, the sky is falling. Because if you focus on all the news and all the stuff, it does feel like the sky is falling.
Sure.
Like, it feels like, and we could just name a few, right? Everything from, climate change to war in Israel to war in Ukraine to
China anything.
China anything right now in this day and age to an election cycle coming up with two subpar candidates to UAPs to
cosmic threats. I mean, what do they say in 2029? There's a asteroid the size of the Rose Bowl that is going to get within our gravity field. It shouldn't hit the Earth, but if it hits a keyhole, which they're calling a 600-mile span of space, that it will hit our gravity field and actually make its way back in 9 years, and it will be aimed right at us. Isn't that wild? So if you can pick just about anything and start focusing on, fear-based topics, and it's going to take you down that rabbit hole pretty quick.
So I'm not advocating sticking your head in the sand and ignoring it, because I would think that there would be some that would be like, well, what's your alternative though? Right? If you're not going to pay attention to it, are you just going to ignore it? And yes and no. And I'm not saying this is right for everybody.
Right.
But for me, I kind of do ignore it. Like, I don't turn on the news. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch Fox. I don't watch any of them. I have the news app on my phone, but it's rarely opened.
Sure.
I've turned off all notifications from it. I figure that if something massive happens, I'll hear about it.
Right.
And then I'll figure out what I need to do about it. But the rest of the time, look, the news cycle is purposely crafted to feed fear.
Totally. That is absolutely what keeps the news going. You bet.
It is, and the scarier it is, the more eyeballs they get. So that being the case, there are some legitimate things to be fearful of, but let's just say 95% of what the news talks about is fear-mongering.
It won't impact you whatsoever. There won't be any even external impact on you whatsoever.
Yeah, so it can create apathy. It can create, a state of uncertainty. It can create procrastination, keeping your head in all of these things, and to unplug and go, no, like where you started with. The only thing I can really control, truly, my effort. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't have any control.
And your attitude, but that's also effort. That's a form of effort.
Absolutely. I don't really have any control over the election. I don't really have any control over what's going on in Israel or Ukraine or aliens or climate. I don't have control.
In some your response is more neutrality around that, but a lot of people's response to that is actually helplessness, right? I can't control this.
Right.
Well, what the hell am I going to do then?
Right.
I mean, if there's another insurrection, if there's another, what happens? What are we going to do? And so I guess I want to make it clear that this is coming from a older and wiser Luke, right? In that you went through a season of maybe feeling those same feelings, right?
Yeah.
But I want to make it clear, and I'm in the process of it, but you're also a well-prepared, wiser version of yourself, right? And so your outlook may be, there's not much I can control about this, but I have controlled what I can.
Yeah.
I've taken everything in, and I can absolutely sit down and go, we're going to be fine for whatever, 30 days, 6 weeks, 2 months, doesn't matter. But you know that. You have a framework in your head here physically that can protect you and provide for your family.
Yeah.
There's a lot of you out there that, and we're not talking about going into a prepper conversation here, but being prepared is important.
Yeah.
Even some of those basic things. I'm not talking about going to the extremes, just some of those basic needs, gasoline, things that are just readily available for you, so you're not following the herds around if something were to happen, trying to fight for resources. Don't make that.
Well, look, we can take, like the absolute absurd of like alien invasion. Let's just take that out of the equation.
Sure.
Okay. Let's bring it back to something very practical.
Yeah.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, and volcanoes.
Yeah, very much.
Okay.
We're right here in it. Yeah.
We're right here in it. We're, hundreds of miles away from Mount St. Helens, maybe 150 miles away.
Well, not only that, but the subduction zone right on the coast of Oregon and Washington that is in the next 50 years should produce a cataclysmic earthquake. That is coming.
If you're in California, it's earthquakes.
Right.
Right? If you're in the Midwest, it's tornadoes. If you're on the East Coast in the Gulf, it's hurricanes, right? None of us are immune to something catastrophic happening that changes everything as you know it.
Right.
And so being prepared, yes, physically, okay? The physically having food storage, having, access to clean water, having the ability to power heat in your house and things like having general preparations physically is important, but preparing mentally. That's why I think I can go, look, it's not in my control, but what I have controlled is what I can control.
Right.
And that would be the anticipation of my response in the face of those events. And I can control those things.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I have controlled, that I have taken action, and I'm ready to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it doesn't serve me.
No.
To worry or stress or panic or to dwell on what could, might. It just ends up for me, it ends up putting me in a place of apathy. I go to apathy is where I go.
Well, and we're talking on a much bigger scale, right? We're talking about just life stuff. Everything else in the world shuts down around us if this type of event were to occur. But Luke's statements are super relevant just in everyday life and business as well, right? You can really look at how much of your business stresses you out and how much of it's actually probably outside of your control. Right. A lot of it is you can tune your business up and add systems or things that make things more streamlined. But there are factors in the market, industries, things like that you went through that.
Yep.
Right. With COVID and affecting gyms and everything. It's like there just are going to be circumstances that you simply can't control, and being mentally prepared and in a healthy space to deal with all of that. I'd even go as far to say the better you can master that now with your business, the more prepared you're going to be for any sort of disaster that comes down the line, no matter what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of go plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah.
Right. And if you've mentally gone through the exercise of like, okay, this goes south. Then what?
Right.
How am I responding emotionally? And I don't think any of us can actually like legitimately understand what that's going to have to look like in the face of those events.
Right.
But I promise you it's better than not doing it.
Right.
And so whether it's you're preparing your business for, economics, whether it's real estate and who knows what's going to happen with the economic environment of the U.S. right now. We are in a pickle, to put it gently.
Yeah, like we're talking depression, possibly. Yeah. Like real possibility of that happening.
And maybe not. Right?
Yeah.
We have no idea. Yes, there'll be someone that looks back and go, I knew the whole time. But they got lucky because they guessed right. There's 100 different ways this could go.
Right.
But we still have to go, all right, what happens if this all ends?
Yeah.
Then what? How am I planning? How am I taking care of my employees? Is it still my responsibility to take care of my employees? How are they take care of themselves? How am I taking care of my family? What about my neighbor? Like, it's good to go through some of those exercises and be like, all right, what are my options?
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, it's scary to think about these things. Don't get me wrong. Like we're not talking about these things lightly, like, just get it done and get it over with. This stuff's tough to process because who wants to think about worst case scenarios playing out? But as I shared with you earlier, I can't remember who said it, but when disaster strikes, the time to prepare is past, know? And so again, just taking a little bit of time and just sorting through some of the what ifs and just making sure that, hey, if this were to happen, do I have somewhere to go? Can I make a shift here and help? It doesn't matter, but go through those exercises just at least mentally so that you're prepared enough to take on some of those challenges when they do come.
And you can make it fun.
Totally.
You can make it fun.
Absolutely.
Like you can prepare in a number of different ways that would be a blast. Let's say, okay, this is wild. This is a crazy scenario, but let's just say, someone detonated an EMP over the U.S.
Right.
Okay, and that's nothing more than a nuclear weapon getting detonated at I don't know the exact at altitude, right? And it detonates as an EMP, and every electronical component no longer works. Right? So you're faced with a couple of choices. You either have invested in a truck that is not electrical based.
Totally mechanical.
That is, from the 70s and doesn't, need any of that stuff. Or you have horses, right? And you learn how to ride a horse, and you have horses out there and your kids enjoy it, and you teach them how to take care of it. And you can create scenarios that are still fun for your family, learning how to ride dirt bikes, learning how to do so many different things that can serve your family for the here and now, but that is kind of a fun hedge against if it gets crazy, it's still going to be okay.
And now you guys are well trained and educated.
So you can still have fun doing it. It doesn't have to be this
intense. Yeah, it really doesn't. Let me ask you, what external factors currently, if any, are affecting you right now?
Yeah. and I think we have to put an asterisk on effect, because I tend to dismiss a lot of external factors. That's kind of my default. And I say that because if I look backwards, and granted, historically looking backwards, my view and understanding is pretty limited. Maybe you can go back maybe early 1900s. And I'm not saying I'm well educated, but that's probably, when I say looking backwards, kind of what I'm looking at is the last century. Every generation has had something that they thought was going to destroy the world, take over the world, change everything.
There's a Japanese author that said, deep down in everybody's heart, everyone is waiting for the end of the world. It's a dark thought, but it resonates. It does. It hits you and you're like,
yeah,
there might be some truth to that.
Yeah. And so if we look backwards, I think, and if you talk to your parents and your grandparents, like, there's probably an element of every generation at some point going, this could go really bad really fast, right? And this is how it ends, or this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? And whether that was Hitler, or whether that was Vietnam, or whatever it was, there was something. Okay. So that as my lens for today. There's lots of some things.
Sure.
We mentioned them at the beginning, right? With huge conflict in Israel right now.
Right.
Massive. Ukraine and Russia. Massive. U.S. economics right now. Very scary. The election cycle. Not so much scary. I'm kind of entertained by it, to be honest. But it's like, WTF? Like, this is the best we can do?
I can't believe America's got two choices right now. It's just mind-blowing to me.
Are there factors out there that worry me? Yes. I think probably the ones that I'm most concerned about are the ones that I see impacting me the soonest and most directly, which is probably the U.S. economic footing.
Sure.
Probably that we're on. We're in a weird spot. Our national debt is
sky high. It's weird. It's in a weird spot.
I don't know enough. Like, I'm not an economics guy. Like, I consider myself well read. I consider myself, decently learned, but I don't know how you recover from it. I don't. And at some point, the music stops.
The truth is, the only way to recover from it that I see is completely obliterating the Social Security program. And that's what the majority of our debt, most people don't realize that. We have debt with China. We have debt with other countries.
It's borrowed against future generations.
It's borrowed against us. So it's our future.
Yeah.
So our elders who are enjoying Social Security right now, who should, we will not have those same entitlements. So unfortunately, I think we're all going to wake up and realize we just have no retirement plan.
Yeah.
And those of you that are putting money away, we are in that vein. We're going to be grateful we did. And I've been singing that tune for a long time. I've been telling everybody, listen, it is time you grow your own wealth, build your own investments, get super serious about it. We should not rely on the government for anything. What did Ronald Reagan say? The scariest thing an American citizen can hear is, we are the government and we're here to help.
That's right.
Right? It's like, no, don't rely on any of that. And so that's the only way we recover, is everyone accepting and coming to terms with the fact that our Social Security program is nil.
Yeah. Economies around the world are collapsing.
Yeah.
You can look at the last 10 years and, I'm not super educated on it, but I know Greece took a huge dive. Obviously, there's several countries in South America, El Salvador,
basically NATO,
that have taken huge dives. Like
Europe, all of them.
We're not immune to it, and to think that we're going to come out just fine is naive. Like, there's going to be pain. It's going to be painful. So I think those are the things that I'm, most concerned about. But again, the only thing that I can do about it, really, is just out-earn the pain.
Yeah.
And that's...
Wow.
And
that came out of nowhere, but that's a t-shirt, man. That's a quote. Out-earn the pain. I like it.
It's your only choice because the government's going to have to take taxes from 30% to 70%. It's going to have to happen. They can't survive otherwise. So they either collapse it or they make everybody pay. So you're going to have to out-earn the tax man. You're going to have to out-earn the pain. And the only thing you can do to control that is effort. That's it. Like, okay, subject to change and me getting more educated somewhere else, right? But based on today and what I know.
Is right now a good time to start a business or a terrible time to start a business?
It's the best time to start a business.
You heard it from him.
Yeah. Yeah. The only better time was yesterday.
Yep. And the truth is there's always opportunity within a crisis. In fact, there's more opportunity within a crisis.
Yep.
And so I know all of us are somewhat afraid of the potential circumstances that are coming down the line, but keep your eyes open, stay educated. Like Robert Kiyosaki said, get educated enough to start seeing those opportunities unfold right before your very eyes. You think everyone crumbled during the Great Depression? Some did. Many crushed it because they
more
paid
wealth made during that period of time. Phew.
Yes.
There's so much opportunity when there's blood in the streets, as gruesome as that is.
Right.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. For me, externally, I shared it with you earlier, is just the onset of AI and how much that...
Yeah, we didn't even mention that one. Jeez.
Yeah, that's a big topic that kind of is getting ignored right now. Maybe not ignored, but maybe just not as, bright a light on it right now just because of the other circumstances with war and everything that's immediate right in front of us. But the onset of AI for my career, I'm in real estate. We own a real estate firm. And I think real estate brokers, this is pure conjecture on my part, but this is my guess as to what the future is going to look like. I think real estate brokers and brokers in general for different things transactionally, I think will still exist. I think our jobs and our job descriptions will look massively different. And I think we'll be compensated less because of that. Mm-hmm. That's my guess. And rightfully so in some ways, right? If some of the legality or the fiduciary duties are taken off of our shoulders and passed on to a more blockchain, transparent type process, okay, I get that. That's probably a necessary evolution in the industry. But that changes what I do and how I do it pretty drastically. Now, I could either shift those strategies and go, okay, can I figure out how to maximize monetization over this new model? Or do I shift and go, this is not exciting to me anymore.
Yeah.
So, but all those questions inside my mind right now around real estate are slowing. And I say that because it's not out of fear as much as it is out of not wanting to expend my effort in a direction that at some point is going to feel totally erroneous.
Sure.
That's where my fear is. It's not failing. It's like, I just want to make sure where I put my energy, it's going to be worth it. Maybe that's not a thing. Maybe I got to get off of that pedestal a little bit and realize being an entrepreneur is full of pro forma work that is going to go nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just part of it. A lot of wasted hours and time, and just get used to it and be okay with that. But the good news is I'm anchored and positioned well enough to thrive through it if I choose to shift that strategy in a new direction and try to monetize it in the best way possible. So I feel good about that, but it does cause me to pause and make me go, should I be focused on something else? More so, not putting it away, but just putting it to the side for a second and putting more of my effort and time towards something that I feel will grow, with the onset of AI and some of these changes that are inevitable for our entire society.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's probably the one external factor that probably has me more bugged out than anything else. The wars are nerve-wracking because it's feeling like America is becoming more and more of a target, and that's a little nerve-wracking, internationally anyway. But again, I have a lot of faith in our military. I have a lot of faith in our programs here to be able to protect us in a big way. So not as nervous about that. The UAP conversation, that's a big one, and that's a fun one to have because it's been dogmatically criticized for a long time, and it's no longer that. And it's kind of fun to actually hear voices come out that are speaking truth and talking about these things. I absolutely think it's real. I don't think it's not real, but I'm not afraid of it because for some reason internally, maybe I'm totally ignorant, I don't think they're violent. I don't think whatever it is, whoever it is, I genuinely believe they want to help in some way. I don't know how, I don't know why I feel that way, but I do. So that one doesn't bother me as much. But I think more than anything, Luke, really is just, it's the fabric of society, how thin of a fabric it is. I think that's probably what has me on my toes a little bit more than anything else, right? Is just human behavior.
Well, we all operate with a social contract.
Correct. And it's been socially peaceful for a long time. That's all we've ever known, right? We've come into a ever since the you can go back and say the Civil War, but maybe even just civil rights movement, right? Where there was a lot of civil unrest for good reason, right? There was massive prejudice and everything else going on within our own society that was causing serious rifts between different communities. And so, but since then, it's been relatively peaceful in America and prosperous. And so we just might see some new normals coming down the line. And so that's, for me personally, what I'm preparing for is social unrest and just making sure that we're prepared against that.
Yeah. When you coming back to AI, right? Like what's your default response to that? Recognizing that it's a threat, maybe sound like a big word. That's not what a factor in the way your particular industry, well, let's be honest, all of our industries, could be affected by it. Do you find yourself leaning in to learn more, or do you find yourself going, I just need to get out and change?
Yeah, so it's a great question. In the short term, I think AI is going to be extremely helpful and fruitful. I think in the long term, it'll start to turn on that. So the example I've used in the past, and I'll use it again, is Zillow, right? Zillow, from the public eye, Zillow is an incredible resource to the public, right? To be able to navigate and search property and save property and do all this. As realtors, however, Zillow came in early on in 2006 and just said, hey, I have this great service that I want to provide to the public, your clients, and here's how we do it. And it seemed like a really, really good fit. And for a couple of years, it was really fruitful for everybody. But then eventually Zillow started gobbling up more MLSs and taking on more information and realizing that they were getting all of this for free, turning it right back around and selling it to us in ad space, impressions, all those sorts of things, and realizing we just gave away all the information for free and now it's monetizing us. What the hell is going on? I think that's going to happen. I absolutely do. To the point where in a lot of veins, we will no longer be needed, and it will let us know that. And in some ways, it's going to make things more convenient, right? Like that guy said, kind of jokingly, like, dude, I want to just rage. Like AI is going to take AI is going to take over. It's time for us to party and kick it. This is what humans have been waiting for, somebody else to do all the work, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
But I think, human beings, aside from wanting to have fun and let loose, we all do. We need sense of purpose, and we need to be able to work and feel like the work we're doing is valuable and all those things. And I just feel like if all of those things get stripped away, which they are already, we can't say they're not going to. They are happening within our timeline right now. I think is foolish. I think we're eventually going to wake up one day and realize we fed the beast, and now we're left without. Hopefully, my hope is that AI can take over enough of those things, because it is, that it ends up being helpful.
Yeah.
That's my hope. That's again, hoping for the best, planning for the worst. How it can turn into this sinister thing, I think may be controlled by humans ultimately, to get it to that point. But I think in the short term, it's going to be cute and fun for a while, and everyone's going to play into it and think it's the next best thing. And then it's going to get scary fast.
There are always going to be things for every generation.
Totally.
That fundamentally change the way you probably perceive the world. And I think that that's partly just human evolution.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I can't imagine living in the time of dinosaurs and being like, we don't have a chance.
Yeah.
We are not the apex predator on this planet. Right? Or whatever it is. But there's always going to be some sort of existential threat that feels like this is how it all ends. And I think you're faced with the option of either getting caught up in it and preventing you from moving forward, or just recognizing that this is our version.
Yep.
And likely humanity will go on, and we'll look back and go, yeah, it did change everything.
Yeah.
But
we're okay.
We adapted.
Yep.
We've adapted all along. That's why we're here as a race.
I'm going to ask you a big question.
Okay.
What type of leadership do we need right now?
Yowza.
It's a big one, I know. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just through your perspective of what's going on and what type of leader do we need right now. And I mean that externally and internally.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a good answer, to be honest. We need somebody. Okay. So I think we need somebody. This is you're either going to be endeared to me or not. I think we need somebody that has Donald Trump policies with Barack Obama empathy.
Sure.
With, one of, and I'm not good enough with knowing who our early presidents were to speak to it, but like,
I mean, Reagan's a good example.
Like some sort of, like wisdom-filled statesman that can be ruthless when needed, that can be compassionate as appropriate, and that can command respect from all nations. And if we could somehow, as a society, move from tribalism, which is a massive arc.
It's a layer,
right? I mean, that's a whole deep dive right there in and of itself.
Millennia.
But moving from U.S. versus China, U.S. versus Russia, moving away from us versus them to us. I think that's our only way, is to pull up our bootstraps as the human race.
What did Teddy Roosevelt say? Speak softly but carry a big stick, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah. So I said I didn't have an answer. I guess I did, but that's pretty generally speaking.
And that's not an absurd request. That's not unreachable.
Yeah.
That person exists out there. Why they're in the shadows and not up front, I don't know. And I hope to God, I pray to God that person rises up through the ashes and we find that person to lead us through this craziness. Because who's in front of us right now, I don't care what you have to say to me. They ain't it.
Yeah.
We need somebody to rise up with all of those characteristics. I agree with you. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly, it's possible.
It's 100% possible. It is.
I also believe that there are players behind the scenes that we never know that actually determine who gets elected and who goes where.
Sure.
Right? So does it fit in line with the overall world version that they see?
Good example is Starbucks. So Howard Schultz, when he went out to start Starbucks, was struggling. The guy that helped Walmart launch ended up finding out what Howard Schultz was up to, sidled up next to him and said, I'm going to help you grow this thing. I'm excited about what you're doing too. That guy is the difference maker between Starbucks being great and not, right? Howard Schultz may have found him. Maybe there was some of that, like headhunting. But anyway, like you said, there's always people in the background that are actually making mountains move that we hear nothing about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how much, I guess I generally assume that they control most of the power. I don't know that to be true or not.
Illuminati.
Right? Yeah. I mean, you could go into all kinds of conspiracy theories, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it ends. All I know is that what I can control is what's here at my desk, what's underneath my roof, what's here in my local community. Those are the areas where I can actually create impact. Like, I don't know that I truly have impact in what president gets elected, but right. I can tell you I do have impact on who ends up being on the county board of commissioners.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Or who has him, that I have impact of who's on my school board.
Right.
Right. And I can control those areas. I can control how my kids get taught, the value systems that I put out there into the world, I swear I choose to focus instead of being stuck in all the bigger stuff, because God, it breaks your heart and it ends up just making you go, why am I doing any of this?
Yeah.
I get so apathetic if I dwell on that stuff, and it's just
caring
not
about
healthy.
everything. You're just like, I don't care, whatever. Yours is more dismissive. Mine is more, I just do my best to, and not always can, but I would do my best to find the silver lining in everything I can.
Sure.
Right? Like, okay, this, again, back to, I can't call it, right? There's got to be a silver lining here, because it might look like a disaster on the front end, but maybe this turns into something incredibly beautiful and launches us into a golden age of humanity that we've never experienced before. We just don't know. And so mine's more like, what is the positive in this? There's got to be something to grab. It's really important for my spirit, for my soul, to survive through tragedy. If I can just latch onto that one small, tiny silver lining, even if it's iota, right? Just something. That's kind of how I cope with it. But I get the apathy train too.
Yeah.
Just going, who cares?
And I love that. And I alluded to that story in a couple of podcasts back. I didn't have the story at my fingertips when we talked about it. And then after that podcast, I was like, I wish I really would have had that story. I started doing research, and it was the story of the Chinese farmer.
It's awesome.
Is where it comes from, right? Alan Watt. Mm-hmm. And through a series of events that take place to this Chinese farmer, perceived by some as catastrophic failures and perceived by some as huge upsides, in each situation, his response was, I don't know what this is. I can't call it. And I think if we can not get wrapped around the axle about what we think the situation looks like, but instead go, I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. Like, truly.
Yeah.
And if I don't, then why allow it to affect my disposition and my day or my week or whatever? If truly, I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. I can't call it.
Yep.
And I think that goes for the macro. And I think that goes with the micro too, with getting a call from the school because your son or daughter's sick and you got to go pick them up in the middle of the day, and it blows your whole day out of proportion, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, you were supposed to do a lot today. You had all these things you were going to check the boxes on, but now you're not. And is that really a curse, or is it a blessing that you get a few extra hours with your son or daughter? Like, I don't know. I can't call it.
And if we go back to what I mentioned a couple podcasts ago about Marcus Aurelius, that your only fear should not being the best version of yourself. And so through the ups and downs, through the external and internal factors, no matter what it is, if you just focus on you being the best you through all of it, no matter if it's good or bad, up or down, left or right, that's the win.
Yep. Focus on what you can control, but you have to be aware that you control so little.
We really do. And there's actually, it's funny because in one breath, there's fear in that, like, oh God, I can't control everything. But then there's actually this beautiful freedom around going, I don't have to keep trying. Like, how many of you out there are trying to control everything?
Yeah.
And you're driving yourself mad, or you're sending yourself down a deep, dark hole. Don't. Yeah. You can't. It's not a thing. And if you are, like, not only internally, but externally, you're probably hurting people. Yeah. You're probably, as someone told me a long time ago,
you're certainly hurting the close people around you. Totally.
Said if you're not allowing other people to make important decisions around you, you're empowering nobody, And so, but be the best version of you. Right. And somebody will say, well, what does that even look like? Well, that's a personal conversation, no doubt about it. But I think we all know if we've given our best effort at the end of the day. We know.
Yeah.
We know. You can check into that, and if it's a constant, no, I didn't, then change that as soon as possible. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at that. There are days where I feel like I have. There are days where I feel like I have not.
Yeah, I mean, grace.
Yeah.
Grace is the word,
totally.
Right? You just, every day is going to look a little bit different. Man, this is a soupy conversation. What I mean by that is it's just like, it's kind of like looking out the window. It's foggy.
Yeah. Great. That's a great point, actually. This is not going to be crystal clear for everybody. Everybody's going to be in a different season, on a different path. with these topics, but I think we centralize it back to control what you can control.
Yeah.
Be the best version of you.
Yeah.
And forget about the rest.
Yep.
You know, you can prepare up to a certain point. Once you're prepared, let it go.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't know what else we say about it.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good wrap for sure.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
We out. Thank you for tuning in to Processing Purpose. We hope you grabbed a few gold nuggets to take one step forward in your journey of life and business. Please remember to like and subscribe our channel if you'd like to get more content to help you build and grow everything around you. Make today your best day. Today is day one.